Any questions?
Hi everyone, my name is Ozioma Anili. I'm a first year MBA student at Simon, and I'm from Nigeria. Prior to business school, I had 6 years of experience across human capital, renewable energy, and financial services. And I'm really happy to be here to share my insights.
Well, I want to ensure that we have enough time for questions and for you to hear from these young ladies about their experiences. So some of these slides, I'm going to move through them pretty quickly, just because I want to make sure that we can use our time to address the things that you guys want to know most from myself, from an admission standpoint, or from a current student standpoint. So in terms of the Simon MBA at the University of Rochester, when we talk to our students about why they've chosen to attend Simon. These are some of the responses that we get. The takeaways from our current students include that it's a top-ranked program, that it's a globally diverse student body, that it focuses on quant and analytics, and a lot of people want to improve that skill set. So there's a number of reasons why students find themselves attracted to our school, and these are just a few. The academic rigor, the opportunity to be in Rochester, which is a very affordable location here in the U.S. So as you go through this process and try to figure out the best fit for yourself for the next few years, these are some of the things to keep in mind. At the heart of everything we do, equity, diversity, and inclusion is included in a lot of how we operate at Simon Business School. We are the 6th ranked most diverse MBA program of the top 50 schools. We've been as high as number 2. We work with a lot of organizations that provide the opportunity to reach out to traditionally underrepresented students within the MBA landscape, from the consortium to organizations like Prismatica. Some of these organizations require that you be a U.S. citizen or have some sort of residency, but other organizations such as Access provide assistance to anyone around the globe who is traditionally underrepresented in the MBA space. But at Simon, it's very important for us to be a diverse community, to embrace diversity. And I think it's something we've been doing for a long time. In terms of rankings, pretty consistently amongst the top 30 programs. 2023, Financial Times, number 26. The most recent U.S. News and World Report, number 27, number 25, Bloomberg, and number 1, according to the ROI, which is very important for students who are investing their time and leaving a full-time job. So we're pretty pleased with the fact that we continue to be a pretty ranked, well-ranked institution. Along with that, we are number 1 in the pay gap for women in terms of the percentage of the pay gap between our male and female students. It's basically meaning that Simon women grads are making comparable to their male counterparts. And that's something that we continue to be very happy about and pushing to ensure that there's gender parity within our class, but also that our women graduates are seeing the compensation that they deserve. So a little bit about this MBA class. So the most current class that just started classes here is comprised of 116 students. We take usually between anywhere 100 to 120. So 116 students to this class, very small, intimate class size. Of my current class, 46% of them are women, representing 22 different countries. I would say nearly half of our class this year is from outside the United States. So I think it's an environment in which people coming into the US can definitely feel as though they're not alone in that circumstance. 35% of this current class is African American, Black, Native American, or Hispanic American, with an average years of work experience of about 5.2. The middle 80% of Simon MBA candidates generally have between about 2.5 and 9 years of professional work experience. The GMAT 10th edition, the middle 80% of students, 620 to 730. Now that is the 10th edition, which is the older test. If you are getting ready to take the GMAT, you will be taking the GMAT Focus. And the scoring is a little bit different. Those scores end at a 5. So if you are taking the GMAT Focus, for most of the schools that you will be applying to, they will likely be referring to the 10th edition score. There is a metric on GMAC's website that you can look up yourself if you get a 645, what that means on the old scale. And that's just because the GRE, the GMAT is a new test, GMAT focus, and there's not enough data points. So if you submit a GMAT score, we're just going to convert it into the old scale. And I can answer questions about that if there's some more clarity needed. GRE wise, middle 80, 150 to 169 on the quant, and the 151 to 160 verbal. The TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo are not required. You don't have to do an English proficiency test if you attended an institution where the primary language of instruction was English. Okay. Middle 80% on the GPA side is 2.738 on a 4.0 scale. So there's a pretty wide range within that. You don't have to convert your GPA. We're going to look at your courses, get a sense of your background, your skill set, and your academic performance overall. And, you know, it's a 17% selectivity rate for my last class. So it is a competitive school to gain entry into. So just put your best foot forward, strongest application, but do understand it is a competitive institution. The experience at Simon is one that integrates the academics, the career search process, and extracurricular activities. Academically speaking, we have a great set of specializations, 10 specializations and 6 minors, with the core courses that are really teaching data analytics and driving home those principles. The career search process is one that starts very early with our students. As soon as you set on campus, we are trying to help you understand, putting you in career action teams, working with a career advisor to really help shape your career search very early on. And then you have activities, clubs, organizations that you can engage with as well. This is just a quick snapshot. You don't have to try and memorize this, right? So this is the current structure to the courses for those who came in fall 2023. So you'll notice it says pre-fall, and that is because our classes always start in July for first-year students. They take that first 3 sets of classes from July to August, and then August to October. I think you guys had finals this week, right? Last week, this week? Yeah, so that first set of 8 classes, August to October, 8 weeks, and then that second set will start late October, early November, and go through December. So there's a lot of classes, but what I want you to take away from this mostly is that you have electives starting in your first fall semester, you have electives in your second spring semester, and you have a project elective, which is based on your major, where you get, example, if you're a investment student, you get to work on an investment project. And then there's an internship required between year 1 and year 2. So as I mentioned, we have 10 specializations from finance to marketing, consulting, all of these being STEM eligible. And then there's 10 minors. So if you're not really sure, or you want some, you can't pick, right? So let's say you decide to major in operation consulting, but you really want to bone up your finance skill set. You can minor in finance, or you can major in brand management with a minor in analytics. And so there's really this opportunity to customize your education to some extent. So as I mentioned, the STEM designation that we have, we were the first MBA to get that STEM designation, something we're very happy with. And to get STEM, you don't have to go out of your way. We don't make it very difficult. I think something like 80% of the students in our first class, before we were officially STEM designated, received it without even, officially trying. And so no matter if you're majoring in banking or strategy, that STEM option is available. And for candidates from outside of the US, that STEM is incredibly valuable because it gives you 36 months of OPT to be in the US on that OPT status, which in that 3-year time frame, you can work. And for those who are interested, you can attempt to go through the visa process, and having that extra time is incredibly valuable for the student who is aspiring to potentially get to an H-1B visa to stay in the US, or just 3 years of work within one of the major corporations where our students work can really boost your skill set, boost your earnings, and create opportunities to go elsewhere. The class of 2023, the average compensation was about 177, salary and signing bonus. Most of our students working at companies like Amazon and Microsoft, in positions like investment banking and product management and brand management, consulting. So a pretty wide range of companies, but primarily Fortune 500 multinational corporations. You'll see that consulting pays, a little bit better than some of the other spaces. Or at least it did for that particular class. And so about 30% of our students went into consulting, 30% went into finance and accounting, and about 26 in marketing. So a very kind of even split between where our students are pursuing opportunities. And 100% of the students who sought to work in the US are working in the US. And so, as I mentioned, about 45, 50% of our class is international, so that they are included within that percentage of folks who are working in the US, which is a great opportunity for those who are seeking that. And East Coast, West Coast, Rochester is located in upstate New York, right about there. However, our students are working throughout the United States of America. And this is just a sample of some of the companies that our students have been able to land positions with. So getting into experiential learning, experiential learning at Simon consists of a lot of different avenues to enhance your skill sets, your leadership, your teamwork. You have different courses that are sequenced to increase your communication skills. You have organizations to be a part of, like our vision consulting team. We have international immersions, which are great opportunities to spend about a week abroad. We've done India, South Africa, Switzerland, Singapore, Israel. I think this year we're doing either is he Argentina or Brazil? I can't remember. But we've also done the Netherlands. So these are great opportunities to, for example, Switzerland's an international finance class. You get the opportunity to learn from business leaders, see the behind the scenes of what's happening in finance within the country, as well as just spending time with your classmates in these places and doing some cultural experiences as well. So a lot of our students look forward to participating in those immersion experiences, but we also have stateside treks. I think the next one coming up is going to New York City. We've gone to Austin, Texas. We've done Silicon Valley. These are within the US opportunities, again, to meet with business leaders in these major corporations. Case competitions, another great opportunity to challenge yourself, to network with your peers, network with other MBAs at other institutions, and get in front of industry professionals. Big part of the Simon community, being in that we are a smaller community here, is involvement in that community. So in terms of the students who are a part of our community, they tend to be those who want to give back and help those around. The Rochester community is largely supported by the University of Rochester as the largest employer in one of the largest private employers in the state of New York. And so our small part in giving back at Simon includes a lot of different projects that we help out with, from net impact to our local organizations like Habitat for Humanity, which we usually help frame houses during orientation, to volunteering at Food Link. So I think our students are just really embracing the city of Rochester and the opportunities that extend from helping out others. So these are just some scenes from our students helping to frame houses that go with Habitat for Humanity to those who are in need. The Secret Santa program, we're gearing up for that, where we provide gifts to over 100 students and families in the Rochester community, usually elementary age. Other ways in which students are really learning to impact local businesses and beyond, our consulting team. So anybody who's thinking about becoming a consultant, becoming a part of the vision consulting, gives you the opportunity to work on multiple projects over the course of the fall and spring semester, with helping businesses that have challenges from operational needs to marketing needs to financing needs. And it really equips you to understand and work in that consultative capacity, especially if you're changing gears and changing careers into that space. It's a good opportunity to engage with that. The venture fund, which is I think about $2 million worth of actual money that our students are managing. And it gives our students the opportunity to impact the assignment community, because that money does impact the assignment community. Additionally, we have organizations that like LASSO's, the Latin American Student Organization, Simon Simon Black. We have organizations like Uncorked, which is a wine tasting club. We have the Outdoor Club. So there's a mix of things. It's not all just business. We have a lot of opportunities to engage with each other and really enjoy each other's company too. As an organization, as a university, as a business school, we really support impacting the culture of Simon and the university through our diversity experiences. We have, diversity conferences, some of the diversity clubs that I just mentioned, and just really being able to address these issues and bringing them to the forefront. Rochester, New York. That is a picture of the campus, our river campus. There's more to it. There's a whole medical center part of it. But Rochester is one of the most affordable places in the United States of America to live. And that's something that for MBA students is very important. It's definitely a decent sized city. It's not New York City, which is about 6 hours by car, but it's definitely a place in which you can have the opportunity to experience life in the US, mid-sized city, you know, a lot of diversity to the city itself. And University of Rochester is a tier 1 research institution with a very strong global reputation. Scholarship wise, 90% of our students receive a merit-based scholarship. So it's important to know that if you apply to Simon and you get into Simon, there's a high chance of receiving a merit-based scholarship award. Anywhere, generally, I would say from about 40% all the way up to full tuition based on the strength of the candidate, including the Max Award, which is a Fielding Leadership Fellow, which comes with a full tuition scholarship plus a $10,000 per year living stipend. There are federal loans eligible for those who are eligible, and for international students, there are merit-based scholarships in addition to loan options and opportunities that you can find on our website. So you can scan the QR code, have a conversation with myself or with my counterpart, Julie, and either one of us would be more than happy to kind of engage in a conversation about your specific profile, and the experiences that you could potentially have, and you know which program is potentially a fit for you. You can also send your resume to the website on the screen with your test scores if you have them. If not, that's okay. And we can tell you again, you know, which program between the MS and MBA is a better option for you based on those things. So I saw the chat kind of popping up while I was doing that. And I hate when I'm sharing my screen because things move on me. So I don't know where the chat questions are. But while I get that figured out, I'm going to start with letting whoever wants to go first talk a little bit about what their experience has been like at Simon thus far, you know, coming to the US, coming to Simon Business School, and if it's been a welcoming environment and a welcoming experience in transitioning to the US and as an MBA student. Okay, Stella first. Y'all took too long.
That's okay, I'll go first. I was actually thinking back to when I arrived in the US because I landed in the US on my birthday, and I thought it would be like really isolating and really lonely. But when I got here, because I landed, I think it was on a Sunday, and I'm staying in graduate housing, the offices were locked, so I wasn't able to pick up my key. But I'd been told about it in advance, so it wasn't something that, you know, I realized when I landed. But during the time I was trying to figure out how I would settle in, a Kenyan who just graduated reached out to me, and she said, "Oh, you know, when are you getting in? When is your flight? I'd love to host you if you need somewhere to stay." And you know, I ended up going over to her house and spending 2 nights as I waited to get my key. And she threw like a surprise dinner with her friends. So that was my first night in Rochester. It was very welcoming. There's that sense of community within the MBA program. Actually, within the Simon community, whether it's MS or MBA, we have a very strong group of African students who hang out together, not because we have to, but kind of because we like each other. And we also miss food because the food here is just different. So yeah, that was my experience. Over to you, Ozioma.
Just like Stella said, I'd say that African community here at Simon is truly remarkable. When I was coming to Simon, I was really scared because we were like about 10, and I was like the only one who ended up coming. And there's a lot of hurdles involved in coming to study as an international student. Even if you get admission, you'll be so surprised with how hard it is to get a visa, even when you have all the boxes ticked. So sometimes it's like it's a thing of luck sometimes trying to come to the US and study despite like you being qualified to. And so when I came, I was really scared. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be the only Nigerian. I don't know how I'm gonna fit in. Um, But one thing that really helped me during the process, like during my process of coming to Simon, was like the African community that was already in Simon. They were very supportive even before I got my visa. And even when I arrived, Rochester, I just had like an unplanned sleepover at another student house today, and she's also a fellow Nigerian with as I am, and she's also in second year. I just feel like the African community has been really supportive, and for people who are looking to come to Rochester, Simon, I would say take advantage of like the African students currently in Simon. Like there's a whole lot of support that they could give. But so far it has been great in terms of like the coursework. Just like as Sharissa said, it is very analytical based. So if you're lacking those kind of skills and you really want to like ump your skills, this is a school that would help you with that. There's also a lot of experiential learning opportunities as well. I am part of the Simon Vision Consulting, and prior to like school, I've never had like any consulting experience. So the whole experience, activities has like really built me up well, as a well-rounded professional that I really want to become. Yeah.
Great. So from let's stay on the academics a little bit. Looking at so many different MBA programs, obviously, I tell students very upfront, this is a hard program. It is a challenging program that is not meant to scare anybody away, but just being real about the academic quality of what our students are learning. Everybody learning Python, they're learning coding and doing things maybe they never have thought they would be doing. But I think academically speaking, we have about 10 different specializations, which is a great opportunity to learn some new skills. So talk a little bit about your major and what you're looking to do internship wise, and what that was like for having done your internship.
So before my internship, I was interested in strategy and pricing as a concentration. That's under the consulting. Okay, let's back up. It's under the consulting specialization, and then under the consulting specialization, you can be a bit more specific. And so I chose strategy and pricing as my concentration. And for my summer internship, I was at Eli Lilly in Indianapolis. I had a fantastic experience there doing pricing work. And while I was there, I realized that pricing wasn't something that I want to do long term. And so now I have decided to go in a different direction. So the reason I say this is because two things. You might come into the MBA program like super focused on what you want, but I'd like to encourage people to come in a little more open-minded. So that's how I came in. I wasn't sure what pricing would entail, but I was really curious about, okay, so what would this look like? Because Simon is very well known for pricing. I figured there's no harm in figuring out whether this is an area of interest for me. So coming into the program, my advice would be open-minded, even as you're exploring your concentration, make sure that you're talking to people across different parts, because you'll meet people from all over the world who are very well qualified, people who have hands-on experience, and you learn something new from everyone you meet. And so, my internship was great. It was hands-on experience at Lilly. They moved me to Indianapolis for 3 months. That's where I spent my summer. And now I'm back in Rochester, back to school. Yeah. And Charisse just said we just finalized, we just finished finals this week. So yeah. Osioma hasn't interned yet, Charisse.
I thought you were waiting for me to talk about my internship. I haven't interned yet, but I can
I wanted to talk about what that search process has been like thus far. You have an intern. So just for reference, internships happen between year 1 and year 2, but the search process starts pretty quickly in that first year.
Yeah. So I would say right now, like I'm still like in my self-identification phase. Currently, my concentration is in marketing, product marketing specifically, and then my minors would be analytics and operations. So right now, just like Stella said, I am being open-minded. Prior to the process, I was like, I'm going to just be applying to just product management roles, But the thing is, like, I feel like I'm multi-talented, and I feel like I could do a lot of things. So trying to be like open-minded and trying other things that I could be good at, or could be good at, but I don't know I would be good at. So that's pretty much where I am right now. So far, the recruitment process isn't easy, but Simon has been very supportive. There is a lot of like resources and support for students who are recruiting, especially students who are not very like aware of like the recruitment process in the US, because it's quite different from the way it is in Africa. So there's a whole lot of resources. Second years are also there to offer mentorship and support in whatever way we could. So I would say right now I am really trying to utilize all the resources that Simon is providing for my recruitment process.
Thank you both. So I'm going to jump to a couple of questions in the chat and then come back to some more questions. And I would encourage all of you guys who are participating to have some questions for our guests as well, to again, hear from that student perspective, the things that they can share, and the admissions questions for myself. In terms of the application, few things. October 15th was round one. January 5th is round two. So you have a bit of time to be able to hit that round two deadline. February, March, April, there's additional deadlines, but for international students, we encourage early applications just to get through that visa process if you're accepted. So there was a question in terms of necessary to write the GRE if you have a master's degree in quant. So we are a test optional institution. So you do not have to take the GRE or the GMAT to apply to Simon or be accepted into Simon. However, the more competitive applications will have a test score. So you want to take into consideration where you've worked, the positions you've held, your undergraduate academic performance, your positions, and ultimately, if you are seeking to see the best scholarship possible, that's where a test score is going to be helpful. So can you get into Simon without a test score? Yes. Are you going to receive the most competitive test score? The most competitive scholarship without a test score? Not likely, because the test score is an additional data point. We take the GRE or the GMAT. Either one is admissible. In terms of time frame, if you're looking to apply by the end of the year and you haven't started studying for the GMAT or GRE, you may want to go test optional. It's not something you just want to do on a whim. We recommend that you study for 2 to 4 months for that. If you're applying in January, start studying today. If you're looking to apply in February, then you have some time again to continue to study and see where you land within our middle 80%. Because that's the other part of it. It's not just a test score, but it is what is that test score. And referencing our profile, the middle 80% of the GRE and the GMAT will give you a marker of what you should be looking to do. For candidates who do not have a test score, again, we're looking at your previous quantitative coursework, or if you do a lot of quant within the job that you hold. Do I need to have a transcript evaluation done? No. As long as your transcript is in English, you do not need to have a transcript evaluation completed, and you do not need to do a GPA evaluation. If you have one for another institution and you want to provide it to us, that's fine. If it's from WES, but we do not require that. Just send us what you have. And the same thing in terms of the GRE, GMAT. It's really up to you and taking a look at your own background, history, skill set. If you have a lower GPA, that's definitely something that you want to consider submitting a test score. And when I say low GPA, that would mean, on a 5 scale, if you're like at a 2.5, or second class upper versus first class, on a 100 scale would be anything below an 80. On a 4.0 scale, anything below a 3.0 as points of reference. Those are not hard and fast, but points of reference. So again, if you are seeking in the strongest scholarship opportunity, you need to take the GRE or the GMAT. Outside of that, you also have courses like MBAmath.com, which can be done online to showcase your quant. But really, it's going to be about how strong you want your application to be and the time frame in which you are applying. Ozioma, I think that one's for you. In the chat, it says he's talking about the possibility of facing a lot of hurdles moving to the US. Could you shed some light on those challenges were and how you have worked around them?
Oh, okay. So I think as a Nigerian, most of you might face it and most of you might not, but it's great that you know ahead of time. I didn't know these ahead of my time. So I do have like a current US visa, but that's just like visiting B1. But for you to come to the US, you do need an F1 visa. And so during my first trial, I got rejected. And I wasn't quite sure if I was going to come to school because it was, and if you know how things are in Nigeria, I can't really talk about other countries, but in Nigeria, things are like not really good, especially with the current exchange rate and all. There's a whole lot of investment involved in just the visa process. And let's not even talk about like you going to school because there's a whole lot of money involved. But one thing that really helped me, because I had to go in the second time and I got the visa, was like I was able to talk to like current students and Simon. A lot of them were encouraging, a lot of them kind of helped me navigate. I would also say like take advantage of like the community, any identified MBA Africa community that you can see right now. Take advantage of them because a whole lot of them are very supportive. I was doing this like as a loner basically, and I was just trying to figure things out myself. And I was like, if I could do it again, I would pretty much do it within the community, gain like as much insights I could get while navigating the process. But one thing that really helped me during the whole entire process was having a strong why, like why I really wanted to come to the US to study. So I would say if you're really serious about doing this, please don't do it alone. Reach out to people, join groups that are really preparing to go to school. Do as many mock interviews as you can, and if you're into like God and all, please involve God in everything because it's not easy. It's not something that you can do on your own. Yeah.
Thank you. It's such a complicated process, which is why we encourage you to apply early, because you don't want to try to do these things in April, May, and June when our classes start in July. Our students report mid-July. So definitely want to be in front of that. Another question was about scholarship chances. So our scholarships are, again, merit-based for foreign and domestic students, all the same merit-based. Merit-based meaning, again, your total profile. So your undergraduate academic performance, if you have a graduate degree, we will look at the performance as well. But when you see our averages, those are based on your undergrad degree. Your leadership, your teamwork, your work experience, where you've worked, positions you've held, multinational corporation experience, cross-cultural experiences, your essays, your goals, all of those things in your application. And that is where having that test score becomes another data point. So that's another piece to add to the application process. So again, 90% of our students get a scholarship if they get in. So the scholarship chances, if you get in, there's likely going to be a scholarship available to you. The small percentage that don't, typically, honestly, they're usually government or country sponsored most of the time. Outside of those circumstances, or military sponsored, outside of those circumstances, our students are generally going to be able to receive a scholarship. From that 40% tuition all the way up to full tuition, these are tuition scholarships only. They do not include other aspects of your education. It's just tuition. So the scholarship chances are phenomenal. Getting in is the part that is the first hurdle. Student to student, I don't know the students' teacher ratio. Anybody? These classes are small. You're broken in. We only have like 120 students per program. Cohorts are broken into blue and gold, about 50 or so students each. So your classes are generally going to be small. Some of your core courses may be a little bit bigger, but some of your classes may have 10 people. This is not a big business school by any means, so you can't hide. Everybody's gonna know what's going on. There's another question specifically about the visa process. You had a B1 visa while applying for F1 and you got rejected. That's a question. So I don't know if you want to answer that in the chat directly, or you may be able to respond to that person directly. What is considered an early application for the full-time MBA program? October 15th was the first deadline. That would be early, but round 2 is our largest deadline, January 5th. So February 15th being round 3. There's 2 more rounds after that. But again, you guys are so early in the process. I would say by February would be the last deadline that you want to hit. Cool. So in terms of the experience for Stella, we go back to you for a question. what is the culture of the Simon MBA like? Is it one that you feel seen, you feel heard? Do you feel like the diversity is really reflected in the groups and things of that nature?
Yeah, so my class, speaking about my class, we're about 100. I know the incoming class was slightly larger than ours, but I know everyone in my class by their names. Like I can say hi to all of them. I know what country they're from. And it's a diverse class in terms of if you're looking at culture, if you're looking at people in terms of where they're from or even where they grew up, because some people are born from place X but grew up in place Y and ended up in the US. So in terms of diversity, I happen to be in a class where I feel like I learned something new from my classmates. I also am able to kind of just indulge in their cultures. Like Diwali is coming up. We have an event that's Diwali themed. We have, I have classmates who will host certain parties, whether that is to celebrate their culture, or if it's, even just getting food together for Ramadan. A lot of people do different things. And so in terms of EDI, I do feel that exists. I think the school is also really supportive in terms of just fostering safe spaces where people can feel heard, where people can feel respected. And at Simon, diversity goes beyond just how you look and where you're from. It's also your identity, whatever gender that is, whatever religion you believe in or don't believe in. There's an inclusive, supportive community that makes sure that everyone's opinions are respected. And more than that, everyone just has a safe space where they can be themselves.
What have been some of the more surprising aspects of both Simon and Rochester? Whomever.
I can take this one as your if you want. When I was moving to Rochester, I thought I would have a very white experience. I thought I would be the only Black person in Rochester. Like, I'm just going to be honest. I'm not even going to lie. It just sounded like, it just sounded like I would be the only, maybe if not the only Black person, then at least like maybe one of two Africans. I was 100% sure. But then during the application process, I was very honest with my admissions focal point, Julie, and I raised these concerns, and Julie started sending out emails to other African students and connected me way before I even made a decision to apply to Simon. And I reached out to them. They shared their experiences. They told me what life in Rochester looked like. And that gave me a lot of perspective. And so that's why I think, as Ozioma said, she did this as a loner, but you don't have to be a lone wolf throughout this process. There's so many people here to help you. The fact that we're on this call, the fact that you have an admissions focal point. If you feel like you have questions that are specific to something that you don't think the admission staff will understand, then ask to be connected to other African students. I did that not just at Simon, but at every school I connected with. And this was the one where I felt people answered my questions and took time to really make me feel like I was part of a community. For my visa process, one of the students actually trained me on like the visa application process. She's a Kenyan like me, and she talked me through like what her interview process was like, what they look for, how to structure my answers, my thoughts. And that made a difference. There's no other school that, I spoke to other African students and they were as hands-on as they were at Simon. So, yeah.
So footnote, there are Black people in Rochester. I'm born and raised in Rochester. My parents' house is like literally 1 mile from the University of Rochester to their front door. But it is not the most diverse place in the United States of America. I spent almost 20 years in Washington, D.C., nicknamed Chocolate City. So I've been in major cities. I lived in D.C., which is very different than living in Rochester. But there are Black people. And actually, the city of Rochester is a majority minority city, which a lot of people don't realize that it's mostly Black and Latino people in the city. So it's not New York City, it's not DC, it's not Atlanta, but you're not in the middle of nowhere. You know, it is a what I call a small mid-sized metro. You can get anywhere in 20 minutes. But at the same time, there is diversity. There are some different, I know you guys have struggled to find some foods, but there are different places to try. I'm sure some of the alumni can hit you to somewhere that is a little bit more palatable than some other places. But yeah, Rochester is an interesting place in that regard too. All right, so we have about, looks like 10 more minutes or so. These have been great questions. And I'm trying to go through as many as I can. I lost my spot. Okay, does the MBA focus on grade point averages? Does the school disclose grades to potential employers? In terms of focusing on grade point averages for the purposes of applying to the MBA, we are taking that into consideration, both your grades as well as your performance in your quantitative courses specifically. So your calc, pre-calc, macroeconomics, finance, programming languages, those are the courses that are going to carry the most weight with us. I cannot remember, do we disclose grades? Ladies, help me out. I don't think we do. I don't think we disclose it to potential employers. So for those of you who may not be familiar with the question, some universities, some business schools do not disclose grades to potential employers. I don't know why that's our policy, but we do not. But you do have to maintain a 3.0 GPA to graduate anyway. So nobody barely graduates. You have to have a 3.0 to graduate regardless.
I'm sorry, Sharice. I misled you. We do disclose grades.
We do disclose? Okay, thank you. I
do.
one or the other. My apologies. I always get that question mixed up. But so we do disclose, but again, as I just mentioned, you have to have a 3.0 regardless to graduate. So you're not going to be disclosed with a 2.6 because you wouldn't be a student here anymore. So my apologies for that. Thank you for the clarification. This is a question for either one of you guys. I think it would be great for you to answer. I will answer to some extent. The Benet Career Management Center supporting international candidates for recruiting, for consulting, but for any major. I will say we do things like career action teams, which are small groups that meet to talk about the specific industry that they are looking for a job opportunity in. There's networking opportunities. There's helping you with your elevator pitch. There's helping you with your resume. But what are the things that the Benet Career Center has done to support you guys in your job search and internship search, especially as international candidates?
Okay, so I'll go first. So currently in the Bennett career, just to go dive more in depth, we do have there are actual advisors that advise people on the different concentrations. And then we also have student Bennett career peers. And I feel like sometimes the student Bennett career peers, they're the ones that I'll call them mentors basically. And one of the ways that they've really supported is helping you in terms of resume optimization, helping in terms of making your LinkedIn look good, as well as networking as well. So as an international student, things are quite new. The way you would probably do your resume in Nigeria is different from the way Americans would prefer your resume to be. And then sometimes they give you insights on how to navigate networking, especially with the American culture, because it's quite different from the way it is in Nigeria. But one of the ways that they've really supported it's just beyond your resume. It's also in terms of personal branding and communications, because one thing that really helps you succeed in the recruitment process is how you communicate, and just consistent practice is really important. So I would say the Bennett career, they really provided resources in terms of putting you out there and getting you prepared for whatever challenges that you may face during the recruitment process.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was answering the question in the chat.
All right, okay.
Oh, did you?
All right, thank you very much. So I could help you, pull up some of the questions. Yeah, so someone asked Sharice, what is the instructor-student ratio at Simon Business School? I don't know if you touched on that already.
We touched on that a little bit, yes.
Oh, okay.
The one we're on next is the integration support for international students moving with families. I can take that one. So I didn't move here with a family, but a lot of my classmates did. And I will tell you that Simon is very supportive in terms of making sure that you and your family settle in. A lot of the graduate housing options are also, they've also been selected in a way that is mindful of people who move here with, partners and their kids. So you have an option to either get a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom if you go with the graduate school option, or if you choose off-campus housing, which is not managed by Simon Business School, you can also look for whatever option you want. But beyond that, there is visa support. I know that when you get an F1 visa, if you're moving here with a partner and your kids, they'd be able to move here as well on an F2. I hope that's the right type. I think it is. Although your partner would not be able to work on an F2 visa, they are able to move with you. And so if that's something that you're interested in, I would encourage you to talk to someone from admissions about the specific details.
Yeah, and we provide all the information you need in terms of your I-20 and everything that you will need to support as best we can. It can vary from even within the country what office you're closest to. I mean, it's really just such a multi-layered process, but we have plenty of students moving with families. And to Stella's point, you would not be alone. Within each class that we have, there's spouses, there's children. We've had single parents. So it's definitely an environment and an experience that people will rally around you and support to find. If you have children who are school age, student engagement office helping you understand where you want to live for the appropriate school district, which school in the US is free unless you want a private school. So all of those things are things that we really help our students with. There's a really interesting question about non-traditional background, sciences, chemical manufacturing, and moving into strategy. I think that's one of the nicest things about our program is that our students do have such an eclectic background. One of my students, this incoming class, was a paleontologist, and he's just a perfect example because, I mean, he's a paleontologist, like really? But now he's getting an MBA. So I think students who have those non-traditional backgrounds, working with career services to identify the skill sets that you have, that's part of what the MBA is helping you do, is helping you retool, and that internship is going to help you get that hands-on experience. So we have, previous oil field folks working for companies like Mobil who decide to get an MBA and go in a different direction. I would say, depending on what you want to switch into, though, you have to be careful. If you're coming from like a manufacturing background and you want to go into finance, that's going to be a tough sell. Right? Getting into consulting, brand marketing, product management, so forth, is a little bit easier. But if you don't have a background in finance, especially investment banking, making that leap, especially as an international candidate, is a big leap because it is so competitive to go to work at Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, and so forth. So if that is a thought process that you want to go in finance, I would say to get some pre-MBA finance experience for a year or two before, because getting into the investment banking corporate finance space without previous experience is a hard sell, even with an MBA, because of the competitiveness. But going from manufacturing to operations or any plethora of careers is definitely an opportunity. Anything you ladies want to add?
Okay. Thanks for that, Cherise. So I wanted to mention real quick, if anyone wants to ask a question, but they want to speak about it, they can please feel free to indicate by raising your hands. And so we'll just call you to go ahead. If you have any questions and you want to unmute yourself, please just indicate, let us know. All right, so there's a new question, Sherry. Someone says, I have heard about retainer fee from some schools. I'd like to confirm if the same applies to Simon Business School upon admission. So yes. I guess that, okay.
It's we refer to it as an enrollment deposit. So if you're applying to MBA programs and you get accepted, you will be expected to submit a deposit. The time frame will vary a little bit from your acceptance date, so it's dated according to your acceptance personally. It's a few $1,000s. So do be prepared, and that's going to be consistent across most of the business schools. So begin to make sure you have that available.
All right, so if there are any other questions, please just indicate. We have a few more minutes. Okay, so Ozioma and Stella, I think a few people asked, or maybe someone how they can reach you after the call, in case you're available to, take a few more questions.
Yeah, I responded.
Oh, okay.
Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. Yeah.
All right.
I think a lot of people do have questions regarding the GRE. So I'm just gonna, because I'm a current student and I've had like conversations with like my current classmates, just like with everyone at ease. As Sari said, GRE isn't like it, they don't really, I would say it's not compulsory that you have GRE to get into the school. I have people who are in my class, they didn't take GRE, and they also have scholarships that are above 50%. And Simon is quite generous when it comes to like scholarships. So if you really like, if you feel like your educational or academics background isn't very strong, you can go ahead to pull in like taking the GRE if you want to. But I would say it's not necessary if you don't want to take it. If you feel like you have a good analytical background and your CGPA from undergrad or master's degree is quite strong, and maybe if you have ICANN or CPA, you can as well just take the leap and apply. And if you're lucky, you get it and you get a good scholarship. So yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Ozioma. Okay, so we have one person. Austin, please go ahead to unmute yourself and ask a question.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very, very much for the section so far. I've really learned a lot. My name is Augustine Odenigbo. I'm calling from Nigeria. I want to really ask about reapplicants. I applied last cycle and I was denied. So I want to know what I could do to strengthen my application this time around so that I could get accepted into the Simon Rochester program. Thank you.
Yeah. So we take each year, we're not going to refer to your last application. So anyone who's a reapplicant, it's year to year, application to application. And it's just based on the competitiveness for that particular year in that particular cycle. So if you haven't applied yet, the first thing you can do is to apply early. So definitely beat that January 5th deadline. It gets more competitive, the more the class fills up essentially. So that would be your first thing. Second thing would be to evaluate, make sure you're applying to the right program. If you have less than 3 years of experience, is an MS program right for you? If you have more than 10 or 11 years of experience, is an executive MBA right for you? So take a look at our profiles and see where you fall. Next thing would be to evaluate in your essays, did you really share your goals, did you answer the questions very well about your short-term goals, your backup plan, and so forth? And this, again, is for anyone who's a reapplicant. And lastly, if you in this instance, maybe a test score would be helpful for candidates who applied, didn't get in, and you want to do something very different to help your application. In that instance, if your grades were not quite on par, the test score may be a difference maker from year 1 to year 2. So those are things that you can do. Is just make sure your essays are really answering the questions, make sure that you're applying to the right program for your profile, and assessing your goals, that they are, shared effectively within your essay, and deciding whether or not a test score would be helpful.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. So there's another question here. Sharice, do we have a few more minutes to spare so we can take another question? Is that fine?
Yeah, we can do 2 more.
All right. So someone said, can you please tell a bit about your MBA placement in investment banking? Also, a career pivoters into IB. I don't know what that means. Feasible at Simon. And I think that question should be for Stella, right?
Yeah, so I didn't major. I've not pursued IB. I can only talk about other people's experiences. I would encourage you to look at Simon folks who have an IB background and reach out and say, hey, I'm a prospective student. I'm interested in this and this. Or if you're already in touch with someone from admissions, say that you're interested in IB and could they please connect you to someone who is currently pursuing IB, and they will put you in contact with them. So I can't speak specifically to the IB experience. I will say, though, that there are a lot of career pivoters. There are people who come into the program who have IB background and want to do something else, and vice versa. There's people who come in and have no finance background and want to do finance. One of my classmates did not have a finance background. She came into the program and is now she interned at Mark within the finance function and is going back for a full-time role. So it just depends on what your background is, what your experiences are prior to coming to Simon, and what your interests are, as well as how you're able to tie that into your classwork, as well as any clubs that you're part of at Simon. So the whole picture view is what is going to matter in the end. But yes, there are career pivoters. I'm also one.
Yeah, I would say we have a lot of career pivoters, but pivoting into finances is challenging from most MBA programs in the US if you don't have a finance background. And if you want to be in finance, the GMAT, it may not be required to get into Simon, but for candidates who want to work at Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, Citibank, Citigroup, you're not going to get the attention of a recruiter without a test score, and it needs to be probably a 680 or better. It is just an incredibly competitive opportunity. You know, it's $200,000 a year salary, so they don't make it easy. So if you are serious about investment banking, then you need to take the GMAT, not necessarily to gain entry into Simon, but because recruiters will ask you for your test score. And it's not one of those things you can just go back and do quickly and then go apply to the job. It doesn't work that way. So, and then trying to get some experience either working within the finance sector, you know, getting a CFA, but it, as Stella said, it's really going to be your whole package. And so going from a non-finance background into investment banking, it's just very, very, very challenging. And so you want to take the time to get some exposure to that industry or consider maybe corporate finance. But again, your whole package is going to come into play. Lack of corporate experience, coming from a nonprofit into finance, IB, again, that can be challenging. So you really want to understand how to pivot effectively. For those who've been working in marketing, who now want to work in consulting, yeah, people who've been teachers who now want to move into marketing, you know, there's all types of pivots to make. Just specifically into investment banking is a bit of a unique animal.
All right. Thank you very much. So I think we have one person with their hands raised. Hi, Miracle. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for this wonderful session. I have two questions. The first one is, I don't have a business background, like I don't have a master's or bachelor's degree in business, but I have a 6-year work experience in business. My GPA has been a challenge to me, which made me to take the GRE test. I want to know if I can still go ahead to apply despite the low GPA. And the second one is about the deadline, the January deadline. Is it necessary, like I have to wait till January to put in my application if I am fit for the application, if I can go ahead and apply? Is it necessary I have to wait till January 1st to make the application, or I can just submit the application before the deadline? Thank you.
Okay. So in terms of individual profile, it's kind of hard without seeing a resume and essay and all of the other elements of the application. But I would say just go ahead and put your best foot forward. Write a strong essay. We have a third essay that is optional. So if you want to share what may have transpired during your undergraduate career that led to your performance not being on par, you can use that third essay, and anyone can use that optional third essay to share a lower GPA explanation, or even if there's something unique about yourself and your experiences that you want to share, that third essay provides that space. So 6 years of experience is within profile. So just apply and kind of see what happens. You do not have to wait till January 5th. Round 2 is anywhere between October 16th and January 5th. So once your application is ready, go ahead and hit the submit button.
All right. Thank you. So I think that would be all. I don't think we have any more questions. All right. So Thank you very much, Sharice. I think this was a very great session. Thank you, Stella. Thank you, Uzioma, for sharing your experiences with us. Really happy to have hosted Simon Business School again this year, and we look forward to having you in subsequent years. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for joining the call. I hope it was a very insightful session for you. And yes, please feel free to reach out to Sharice. If you have any questions, reach out to Ozioma or Stella on LinkedIn, like they mentioned. And Sharice just dropped her email also. Please feel free to connect even after the call. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for joining once again. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.